Delta 547, wind 19016, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Runway 22 right, clear for takeoff, Delta 547.
Taxi via
Air traffic controllers protect our nation's airways. These are the stories of real air traffic controllers to boldly deliver a safe, orderly, and expeditious flow of air traffic from their departure point to their final destination.
Wind 19016, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Runway 22 right, clear for takeoff, Delta 547.
And I'm also working on a story about two men that I worked with at FAA, what is it, right? FAA headquarters in 1985 and 1986. And the guy that sat 2 seats over from me was a B-17 pilot in World War II. When I was 35 when I got there, and there were 3 people in the International Procedures branch, and Larry Billow was one of them. And he was a B-17 pilot. 1 seat over from him in a cubicle in a window seat was a Tuskegee Airman named Span Watson.
Oh.
And both those men were so humble, and you wouldn't even know that unless somebody told you. And I've got the thing all ready to go. I'm gonna tell a story about each. They both were very nice to me, and they mentored a lot of people. But I'll tell you right now, one thing I asked Span, because I talked to him in 2008 on the phone. He passed away in 2010. He was 92. He'd be 109 this year if he was alive. And Span was in the first combat mission of Tuskegee Airmen in World War II over the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow.
Air to air, dogfighting with the German Air Force fighters. Span, I asked him in 2008, we were talking about, Span, man, how do you stay so young? He said, I got a great team of doctors. And he was just a fine gentleman. And then Larry Billow, when I found out, somebody told me he was a B-17 pilot, I was talking to him one day. I said, what's your most memorable thing? What's the greatest thing that you remember about being a B-17 pilot? And he said, when they had a food drop into Holland, B-17s for 8 days were dropping food because the people were starving. So they flew the B-17s over low level. They opened up their bomb bay doors and would drop parachutes with food in the pastures, and people would be down there waiting. And he flew 2 missions on May 3rd, 1945 and May 5th, 1945. In a B-17, he was a captain, a pilot, and quite a guy. And he would be 105 this year if he was still alive.
Wow, that is so interesting. You just brought that up. And when you're talking about working with pilots, I still work with Southwest and United with the kids and everything else, and we come out here quite often. But the Tuskegee Airman, C. Alfred Anderson, my mother had received his award, and he was the red-tailed pilot that flew Eleanor Roosevelt around to show that they could fly. And so I met him back in 1992. I believe he passed in 96, and he like you said, life. He was a dancer. My mom kept saying, "Go dance with the chief." I'm like, I don't want to dance with that old man. Mommy, keep dancing. She said, I'll go back out there and dance with the chief. So now I'm thankful that she did tell me to dance with the chief, But like you mentioned, and meeting some of the former Tuskegee Airmen that, when they opened up a new school, I believe, not too long ago, it was great to, like you said, knowing the pilots and especially the Tuskegee Airmen. That's an honor.
Yeah. I remember Dana, I also met her mother, and it was so impressive. It was sad to say when she passed away, part of the funeral was in a hangar like this big. I think it was even bigger, and it was full of people.
Wow.
People flew in from Alaska, from all over the world, and everybody who's who was there. And I was like, wow, they were all were there for her funeral. It was by College Station, remember?
Yeah, it was in College Station. I think they had a national meeting. What was that? What was the national meeting they had? They had every morning.
TAPS.
They had some kind of meeting. But anyway, a lot of people didn't know that was my mother. It wasn't like something we put out. And they were doing their briefing, and then one of the secretary, Linda, had called me and said, Dana, did you say your mother was a controller? I said, yes. She said, did you say your mother had brain cancer? And I said, yes. And so she said, we didn't know that was your mom. They were on there today, and they had the telecon, and for 45 minutes, all they did to talk about your mother.
Wow.
So, she would eat and breathe FAA. And I was like, Mom, do not give me an FAA sweatshirt ever again. I don't want one. Not for Christmas, not for my birthday. I'm good.
But look what you're wearing.
I know, right? You're wrong for that.
Yeah, I am.
Hey, a little tidbit about Tuskegee Airmen. Not a single B-17 was lost when they escorted them in World War II. Quite an accomplishment.
Yes.
That's
Quite an
right.
accomplishment.
That's right.
In fact, it got to the point where all the B-17 crews were saying, nope, we won't.
Yes, that's correct.
We want them to escort. They
That's
were in
right.
the P-51 Mustangs. I was not there. I'm just repeating.
Something you saw, huh?